Here's some things that you probably should know before you get into goats. Right, Topper? What is going on, y'all? Jason, Brooke over here at Cog Hill Farm. Hope you guys are having the best day ever. But today we want to discuss goats. We get a lot of questions about goats, and I thought, you know what? Let's just make a video about them, and just maybe we can answer everybody's questions and concerns about owning these beautiful, beautiful creatures. What you think?
Yes, and there's a lot to be talked about.
Yes, it is. You know, when we first got our goats, we made so many mistakes because I want to say that behind chickens, goats are probably the second most popular animal on a hobby farm, small farm, homestead. He's going to try to knock my camera over. They're so curious. I think people assume that since goats are so popular, that they're quite easy to raise. And in our opinion, that's not the case. Goats are a little bit more difficult than you think. I would put goats at an intermediate level, way harder and more complex and complicated than chickens. So you need to ask yourself, why do you even want goats? Are they going to be pets like Mr. Tip here? Or do you want them for milk products like our Nubians? Or are you getting them to clear some land off? Are they going to be a companion to possibly another animal on your farm? Or, I mean, there are even meat goat breeds. Close your ears, buddy. You don't need to hear that. But that's one of the main questions you need to ask yourself. Why do you even want goats? Because there's so many different breeds of goats out there, and you definitely do not want to get the wrong breed for the wrong situation. For example, if you were wanting a milk goat or a goat that produces a lot of milk for your farm or family, you would want to look at the larger dairy breeds like Nubians like we have. Or if you didn't want that much milk, you may want to look into these smaller milk breeds like this little girl right here, Miss Bo Peep, who is a Nigerian dwarf goat, and Bootsy back there. They're also excellent dairy breeds, but they're a lot smaller, so they don't produce near as much milk as, say, one of these larger dairy breeds we got back here. Or if you're looking for a companion or possibly a pet goat, you may want to look at the smaller breeds, again, like the Nigerian dwarf right here, or the pygmy goat. One thing that I cannot stress enough, and this is super, super, super important, and that is know where your goats come from. You got to know where your goats come from. Be sure they're highly recommended. They got great reviews. You know somebody that possibly has gotten a goat from them or some type of relationship there. That I cannot stress that enough. The number one thing you do not want to do is to go to a barn sale or an auction and buy a goat or any livestock for that matter, because more chances than not, there's issues there and they're passing on that issue to somebody else. We've made that mistake ourselves early on. Our first two goats, one of them died within a week. And I'm not trying to put this video out there to scare anybody at all. I'm just putting this video out there to make sure you're prepared and know what you're getting when you get goats or get into the goat world. Right, Bo Peep, Mr. Top? See, goats are a little prone to diseases and parasites. And that's a mistake we made early on, is that we just was not prepared for that at all. And that's why it's important that you watch or know where your goat comes from, especially if you already have a few goats already. You do not want to bring something in your farm. And goat diseases are highly contagious, and goats will hide it. They will hide pain, they will hide discomfort, because they're prey animals, and that's just in their nature. And so what tends to happen is that when your goats get sick, especially if it's a contagious disease, it'll pass it on, And it's usually too late before you know something because they tend to go down really, 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 really fast. And that has just been our experience with it. Now, parasites is another story. Parasite is something that each region, each part of the United States, each farm's different. The way it's treated is different. So the best advice I can give anybody there is this, is to do fecal samples with your vet. Take a fresh sample, find a vet that you can work with. That's also important too. We got one here in Dr. D that is awesome, and he comes to our farm, which is also awesome, and he does fecal samples for us quite regular. So we get on a schedule, like every 3 months we will do fecal samples and take them to our vet. So when our vet looks under the microscope and sees that there is a parasite load there and sees which parasite it is, then that's when we treat. So since goats are prone to diseases and parasites, we put a cabinet, a medicine cabinet, here in our milk room in our barn for emergencies. We got with our vet, Dr. D, and he gave us a list of things that we should have on hand in case he can't get here. So we try to be as prepared as we can in case we do have an emergency here on our farm. So if you are getting goats, definitely get with your vet about a list of medicines and items that you should have on your farm. Hey, Peachy. Hey, girl. Yeah, I'm walking around and telling everybody some important things about goat ownership and owning goats. Hope this video may help somebody and not make some mistakes that we've made in the past, girl. Yeah, that's what I'm hoping. So another myth that I'm assuming got started is because people do use goats to clear land, is that goats will eat anything. And from our experience, that is not the case whatsoever. Our goats are extremely picky. We have found each goat's different. Their taste buds are different. They're just like people. For example, we give our goats treats. And one of the treats we like to give is bananas. One goat in Bootsy right here, who will, I'm talking about, will climb over the fence. She will knock somebody out to get the banana. Then you got ones like Bo Peep right there that will eat it, but you can tell it's not the best thing in the world. And then we got Miss Capri right here, who doesn't even care about bananas at all. She does not even like bananas, period. So they will not eat anything like people think. But what they do need is they do need hay, of course. Your mom, she's right here, baby. She's wanting to know where her mama is. She's right here. There she is. Goodness gracious. Now all's good. But of course, goats do need hay, especially if you don't have a lot of grass, which we do have a lot of pasture here for ours. But goats would mainly prefer, y'all look here behind me. Y'all come on. Let's tell them about what y'all like to do more than anything. More than grazing, eating grass. Let's show them. That is, goats are foragers. They much rather forage in the forest and eat weeds and underbrush, trees. This is what they prefer versus grazing. Kind of the opposite of sheep. Sheep are more grazers than they are foragers. Goats are just the total opposite. They're more foragers than they are grazers. So that's why they make great animals when it comes to clearing land. But you do have to be careful with that because I said earlier, goats are picky eaters, and they are. But they also are curious eaters. So they will try something and see if they like it. And if you had something highly poisonous in the area that you wanted them to clear, it could be fatal or it can make them really, really sick. For example, that I think of is the black cherry tree, which is a native tree here in Alabama. It wouldn't take much of them eating the black cherry leaves or parts of that black cherry tree to make these guys sick or even worse. So we are very, very cautious as to what's in the areas where our goats are clearing. And you can see the guys, how they have done an amazing job here on our farm at clearing this spot. And I'll show you the difference. And y'all can see our fence is right here, this pasture over here. But if you look over here, you can see the goats have not been over here. But we are definitely going to expand this. And again, we will go through here and comb this area and make sure there's nothing in here that would possibly harm our goats. But they will keep this clean just like they've done over here for us. And talking about fencing, y'all, you have to have really strong and good fencing for your goats because they are pretty good escape artists and some are better than others. I remember a mistake we made early on is that we did corner post. And let me show you what I'm talking about right up here. We now use this H post setup right here for our corners to keep our fence tight, as you can see here. But what we originally did is we did a diagonal style when we first got goats 15 plus years ago. And what we learned is that some of the goats would walk up that diagonal system and jump out. Now this is a fencing that we also have used here on our farm. This is more like a temporary fencing, or if you're moving your goats around, kind of like we do our chickens here. This is our egg mobile, and we move our chickens around on fresh ground when it's time, and they make garden plots for us. But we have used this fence for our goats, especially when we first moved to our new farm here 3 years ago. This farm had zero infrastructure, and we needed some larger areas for some goats here and a cow, Moody, on our farm, and we did use this electric netting right here. Now, here's the thing about goats and electric netting fencing like this. Now, cows will stay in this no problem whatsoever. Chickens stay in this no problem whatsoever. Goats, on the other hand, they can and will get out of this fencing. Reason being is that goats tend to jump forward instead of backwards. You really need to train your goats if you do use this type of fencing right here. And even if they are trained, there's still a chance they're gonna get out. You are so beautiful. Yes, you are. You tell everybody hey? Tell them hey. Yeah. Tell them hey. Yeah. If you do want goat milk, you got to have a buck. That doe is gonna have to go into heat or go into cycle, and then they mate, and then she has babies and produces milk. And you can do that really two ways, honestly. You can either, y'all don't, they love messing with the camera. It's so curious to them. But the two ways you can do that is own your own book. Like we have here, we have Joe and we have Mo, also known as Stankin' Stunk or Stinkin' Stink. And I'll get into that in just a second. Or you can either take your doe to another farm that has a buck if you don't want to get it, if you don't want to own a buck. And again, we'll get into bucks in just a second. Or you can bring a buck to your farm. But here's why I personally do not like that. Now again, I know each place is different, each farm's different, each homestead is different, and I always tell people to do what's best for them. But in my opinion, you want to try to keep a closed herd as best as you can, because you remember me talking about goat diseases and parasites and how fast it spreads among your flock. So when you bring something new into your farm, you're always opening up that door of something happening, them bringing something to your farm that you did not have. And I get it. I understand that owning a buck has its own issues. Good morning, Nugget and Goldie. What you guys doing this morning? We're gonna go over here and visit Stinkin' Stunk this morning. These are our bucks. You can see Mo right here. That's Joe over there. Joe's a hormonal mess right now. He's in full rut, which means he is looking for a mate. Joe is over there courting our pigs, our two pet pigs, our rescues, Cooney Coonies, the Gus Bus, lovely Loretta, aka the Honeymooners. But we have two bucks, Mo and Joe. They're unrelated, so we're not breeding brothers and sisters and cousins or anything like that, right, buddy? Mo's typically solid white. As you can see, he's got a little brown tint to him, and that's not because it's trying to rain here. That's because he's in rut. And what that means is they are courting the ladies. Instead of spraying that brute on them, They're doing number one on them, and the smell courts the ladies. They also have scent glands, much like a deer, and it also produces a smell, and it makes their skin oily, and it just produces this musky smell that I refer to it as smelling like a ferret. If you've ever been around a ferret that hasn't been descented, then it's not 100% like that, but it's fairly close like that. I can smell it when I get about 30 foot from these guys, and anything they touch smells like it. So if you get it on yourself, it's there. You kind of have to wear it off. If it gets on your hands, Gojo doesn't get it off, vinegar doesn't get it off, so it just wears off, and you just smell like a boy goat for a little bit there. If we got to trim hooves because a goat hoof needs to be trimmed like a horse, I put like a disposable cover suit on or a cover up, and I just throw it away. I mean, yeah, I just throw it away. It'll take several washings to get it out of your clothes. And that's probably the main reason people don't want bucks. Big Joe right here, as you can see, is taking an interest in Mr. Gus right here. All right, buddy, fist bump. That's what I'm talking about. Y'all have a great day. One thing that I cannot stress is that goats need shelter. Not typically because it's cold outside. Goats really handle cold weather like a champ. But the main reason you need a shelter for your goats is rain. Goats, for the most part, do not like rain. They do not like to get wet, period. If it starts raining and the first few drops of rain hit, these guys are running to our main shelter, of course, is our barn and their stalls over here, and they can go inside as well. But they're hightailing it to the barn. They're hightailing it to the shelter. The cows will be standing outside. Our emus will be standing outside. Of course, the ducks and the chickens, they'll stand outside. All of our animals have a shelter here, but most of them will just hang out in the rain unless it gets really hard, except goats. If it sprinkles, they're headed to the shelter. So if you do get goats, you're gonna have to get those guys some type of shelter that they can get out of the rain. Let's get them their minerals here. Yeah. We offer our goats minerals here because of copper. Here in Alabama, where we're located, it is a copper deficient area. Goats typically will get their copper from the ground. So we offer our goats minerals two ways, loose and in a block. But we are in a copper deficient area, so we like to give our goats copper via minerals. Their feed has copper in it. We give them the block, it has copper in it. And at least once a quarter, we do give them copper bolus, which is basically little copper strips. Also, a high quality goat feed or goat grain. If you have ideal perfect situations, there's a chance that you will not have to feed your goats any grain, but we do feed our goats grain. Not a lot, but we do feed our goats grain. And one reason is because of the male goats we have here, either the ones that have been fixed or weathered or our bucks, and that is this. I got to get out of here, and the dueling banjo roosters in here, they're cutting up this morning. And that is something called ammonia chloride. Now, I know it sounds scary, but it's really not, especially in the goat world. Now, what that does is it helps prevent and helps with, in layman's terms, little kidney stones. Pretty much, it's calcium buildup in the goat's urinary system or urinary tract. Most name brand, high quality, good, popular goat feeds has it in it, and it's easy to find. They usually have it on the bag because it's that important, but if not, just look at the label. And I know that ammonia chloride does sound scary, but it's really important, especially for your male goats. And the reason why males versus females, bucks versus does, is that the tract's different. The urinary tract's different in the two animals. In the female, it's basically straight, but in the bucks and the male goats or your wethers, it's shaped like an S almost. So what happens is that calcium comes through and it gets stuck in the curves, and that's why it's more prone in male goats versus female goats. And once they get stuck, and if you don't catch it in time, it's bad because they're totally blocked. They cannot go to the bathroom, and then their bladder eventually just explodes. So one thing about goats is that you can't have just one. They've got to have a buddy. Now, they would prefer another goat 100% for sure. But it could be a cow, it could be a donkey, it could be a pig. But they cannot be by themselves because goats are herding animals. So they do need a buddy of some sort. But the most important tip I can give you guys about owning goats is to give these guys unconditional love. Don't you think?
I do. And it's hard not to do that when you have such sweet, beautiful animals. Did I
Bo!
just say that?
Bo Peep, what are you doing?
She wanted to convince me that she wasn't one of the sweet ones. But you are one of the sweet ones.
Oh,
Yes.
Bo.
You bit her tail.
Goodness gracious.
What was that about?
I don't know what that was about. I do hope this video helped somebody out there about goats, and y'all stay safe with this storm system that's coming through there, and as always, y'all be good.